What's up, folks? If you haven't heard, there's a bit of a big game tomorrow. In fact, I think we're supposed to refer to it as the big game, but I don't know. I'm going to risk it. I'm going to call it what it is. Super Bowl 60 is upon us tomorrow or tonight if you're watching this to get ready for the big game, the big dance tonight. Patriots, Seahawks, going to be a Super Bowl to look forward to and a game to look back on a season to look back on. This has been, I think, a very memorable season. And the meeting of these two teams being one of the more surprising Super Bowls I can remember. A pair of teams that, for example, in my own preseason power rankings, were in the 20s. I think you'd be pretty hard-pressed to find anybody that picked either of these teams to go to the Super Bowl. Maybe Seattle, but especially in the New England Patriots case, it's really fun to see some new characters at the top of the NFL ladder here in the Super Bowl. And I thought it'd be fun today to, of course, preview the game, but begin with a little bit of a kind of look back on these teams' seasons, sort of how it started versus how we got here type of conversation. And then, of course, dive into the matchups and ultimately give my pick for the Super Bowl here. And if you don't care as much about the sort of narrative and setup for the Super Bowl, you're free to skip ahead. I'll timestamp it for you so you can get to more of the breakdown of the matchup here. And I do want to thank the sponsor for today, Underdog, who you'll hear more from later in the video. How we got here, Patriots versus Seahawks in this Super Bowl, is first and foremost thanks to the collapse of some major NFL powerhouses that we expected to be here this weekend. There's a pretty nice list of teams that were, to me, a top tier of teams that were pretty easy to make your choices. If you were trying to predict who this Super Bowl was going to be heading into the year, of course, the Philadelphia Eagles, last year's champions, really no signs that things were going to slow down for them, but they suffer a collapse of their own. The Detroit Lions, not quite able to hit some green lights of their own with the changing of coordinators and some changeup with the interior of their offensive line, some injuries on defense really derailing them. Of course, the Kansas City Chiefs, who have been in this game seemingly every year for a long time at this point. They didn't even make the playoffs this year with a massive fallout in their team and their potency. The Baltimore Ravens were projected to be in the mix here. They missed the playoffs with countless issues of their own, firing John Harbaugh. And even the Buffalo Bills, who were in the mix here, but they fall short as well. These are the sort of usual suspects. And for all of these teams within the confines of this season to really crumble, and I really mean it. I mean, these were my top 5 teams ranked heading into the season. And you know, they have sustained success over years as well. This isn't just about who this year's favorites were supposed to be. These have been the premium talented teams in the NFL for multiple years, and none of them really all that in the picture this year at all, kind of clearing out of the way for some new faces like the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks to step up. It's been, looking back on this season, I think the biggest and most memorable narrative from this season that sets us up for a very fresh Super Bowl that I am looking forward to. A lot of people that know I do what I do for a living ask me as the playoffs are starting, who do you want to see in the Super Bowl? What are you looking forward to? And I do tend to answer like, I just want something new. With all due respect to the Eagles fans and Chiefs fans, I really just didn't want to see the Eagles again. I was a little bit excited as an overall NFL fan that the Chiefs didn't even make the playoffs this year because there's really so many characters in the NFL that deserve this spotlight, and I'm so excited to break things down with New England and Seattle here. But arriving at this point, it is a reflection on 2 major takeaways from this season at large, looking at the league from a macro perspective. And number one, it is that the salary cap is real. We joke about it all the time with void years and moving guarantees around and all these different, cap manipulation tactics that these teams have used to really stretch windows longer than they're really supposed to and maintain a lot of key talent and stuff. We do. We spend a lot of time saying that the cap is not real. But as you reflect on teams like Philadelphia, Detroit, Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, they lost a lot of talent this offseason, and it is a reminder that championship windows in this sport, especially with a hard cap, they are fleeting, and winning in moments like this for teams like New England and Seattle, it might feel like, oh, these are upstart teams, they're going to be here forever. It's not always the case. It could be the case, but as you reflect on what has happened to these teams and you look around the rest of the league, it does, I think, raise the stakes a little bit for these two teams, that this is a big deal to get this thing done now that these two teams have made the Super Bowl. And I think especially in the case of a team like Seattle, one of the major shortcomings of some of those teams we mentioned is losing your top coaches, your coordinators who go on and be head coaches elsewhere. Clint Kubiak has been such a big part of Seattle's run here. He's going to go take the Raiders job. So not to say Seattle can't get back, but as we know, you lose a couple of core pieces and things can not just take a step down, but they can really fall off in a hurry. I mean, 3 of those 5 expected Super Bowl teams this year not even making the playoffs. Philadelphia getting bumped in the first round and Buffalo in the second round. I mean, those are major disappointments for those teams that really did open the way to have the conversations about these two teams, Seattle and New England, here for Sunday night's big game. And then the other major takeaway that I have as I reflect on these two teams and how we got here and kind of a macro conversation about what it takes to go to the Super Bowl is not necessarily a comfortable conversation, but it is at the forefront of my mind when I think of these two teams and try to add up all of the different reasons for how the hell did we get here with the Patriots and the Seahawks in this Super Bowl. And this is the part of the show that Seahawks and Patriots fans don't want to hear. But it's true, and no one is really willing to say it, but I will. Injuries freaking matter, man, a lot. So often, the teams that get to go to the Super Bowl, yes, have to develop and hit green lights within their building, but a lot of it does just come down to injury luck, man. And you look at these two teams, it's hard to find two healthier teams in the NFL. The New England Patriots easily, I would say, the healthiest team in the league this year, not just here in the playoffs, as in the AFC Championship. They didn't have a single starter on injured reserve and were able to field every single one of their starters in the AFC Championship against a Denver Broncos team whose quarterback had just gone down for the year the week before. That's some pretty substantial injury luck. But also in the regular season, the Patriots were one of the healthiest teams during the season as well. They did have to overcome some injuries to guys like Will Campbell later in the season, but really nothing substantial impeding the Patriots' way to this Super Bowl. And then for Seattle as well, one of the healthiest teams in the league, and that is the case here for the Super Bowl. Really the only starter not available for this team isn't even a full-time starter, and that's Zach Charbonnet, who's their, 1B running back. If that's the one player you're going to lose, you would sign up for that 9 times a week and 18 times on Sunday, man, for lack of a better way to put it. Like, that is extraordinary health. Really, the only guys dealing with injuries at all are Charles Cross, who is battling an injury, and that is notable, but again, he's out there, and they don't have really any other substantial injuries. And now Nicky Manwari seems to have rolled his ankle. We'll see how healthy he is for the Super Bowl. But, man, I know the fans of these two teams don't want to hear it, and it's not one of the most exciting ways to start this show, but it's real, man. I mean, these have been substantially lucky teams when it comes to injuries, and they're going to have an opportunity to capitalize on that here Sunday night. But I wanted to start there because the reality with Super Bowl content is, yes, you have the two fans of these two teams that care deeply about a video like this, but the majority of fans are looking forward to the offseason and thinking back on the year and what happened and how it impacts their own team. And I thought having some big takeaways like that, of course, looking through the lens of Seattle and New England, but on a more macro league-wide scale, was a fun way to start today's video. But I do want to now really dive into kind of how it started and where we are today with these two teams. Two teams that I obviously had ranked too low as we headed into my preseason rankings. The Patriots were my 27th ranked team heading into the year. The Seahawks landed as my 21st ranked team. Clearly were not my two picks, let alone to go to the Super Bowl, but I didn't even have either of these teams making the playoffs in my final predictions video. And obviously I was wrong about that. And I wanted to look back on what differed from where my question, and I wanted to look back on what my questions were on these teams heading into the year and where they really kind of proved me wrong and landed with some big green lights on these team season to arrive where we are today. So let's begin there with your AFC representative, the New England Patriots. And like I said, I had them ranked 27th heading into the year. And when I do my preseason rankings through my deep dive series, it's really all about like ranking teams at their floor, assessing question marks. And if you are a very unproven team with a lot of moving pieces, you're naturally going to come in lower in how I do my rankings. And that's exactly what happened, especially in the case of New England. I mean, the sheer volume of question marks for this team heading into the year was substantial across the board with the Patriots. Not that you necessarily looked at them and said they have a bunch of defining weaknesses, but it was harder to look at them and know exactly where their strengths were going to be and how well everything was going to click together with just so many moving pieces, a lot of roster change, and of course, Mike Vrabel coming in, making the Super Bowl here in his first year with New England. As much respect as I have for Mike Vrabel. In fact, I got some criticism in my Patriots deep dive for ranking Mike Vrabel as high as I did as the 10th ranking head coach in the league. At least I got something right, I suppose. But when you look back at the Patriots questions, man, especially on offense, it's damn right remarkable that they've reached the heights that they have this year. I had them ranked, again, at their floor, but as the 27th overall offense heading into the year, obviously with room to improve on that. But man, they finish third on the season in offensive DVOA, second in points per game, and of course Drake May finishing just behind Matthew Stafford in the MVP voting. I mean, this was a efficient offense, I think is the word I come back to them with, largely taking good care of the football, creating explosive plays through the arm of Drake May, and a handful of wide receivers that really stepped up this year. But man, I had questions across the board at the three core pillars of this Patriots roster. Drake May, heading into the year, you had a lot of reason to be excited about really the flashes that he showed and the moments he gave you in his rookie season. But for him to take the leap he took is by far the biggest reason why the Patriots are here today, even though I will admit he hasn't really played well in these playoffs, which is something I'll talk about later on. But man, to go from really a volatile rookie that you're hoping can take strides in his consistency in year two, to go from that to a top 5 quarterback in the league, the engine of this offense and MVP runner-up, it goes without saying, like, that is the core reason for the Patriots' success here. And I think just the biggest tip of the cap to, of course, Drake May for his work ethic to develop at the rate that he did, the improvements he made with his accuracy and his footwork this season to take on a new offense in his second year, a Josh McDaniels offense that is ridden with pro-style concepts and a lot to embrace from the quarterback position. And he took it obviously in stride. And then the staff as well, working with Drake May and getting the absolute most of him. I just don't have enough words to truly capture how much that matters for this Patriots team in their ability to kind of overachieve this season. But it wasn't just him. I look at these wide receivers, and man, I was terrified of this group being enough for Drake May in year two. Stephon Diggs, 32 years old, signed here, coming off a torn ACL. Like, to expect him to play as well as he did this year, where he played at like a legitimate Pro Bowl level this year. I know the Pro Bowl is a joke, but someone that when you're filling out your original ballot, he's going to be one of the top 8 names or so among wide receivers who deserve to go to that, receive that honor, if that makes sense. And that was just not something I expected. I bet against it, frankly. I figured, this could be shades of Julio Jones going to Tennessee, or I'll even admit, like Cooper Kupp signing with Seattle. Yeah, he played great in the NFC Championship, but like that's a regressing older wide receiver that was probably overpaid for his services this year. On the other side of the coin here with Seattle, for Stephon Diggs to just be fine coming off of that ACL, a massive surprise and a reason the Patriots are here today. And then Keyshawn Boutte as well showed some flashes last year, has incrementally developed, but this year he really did emerge as unironically like one of the better true wide receiver twos in the league. Not a T. Higgins or a Devontae Adams or something where they could go and be a number one with another team, but someone that like, yeah, if that dude's your number 2 wide receiver and he's playing at this level, that's more than enough to work with. And for him to be the consistent ball winner down the field, a back shoulder chemistry glue guy with Drake May, to just be such a stable force in this offense, it's gone a long way for this team. And then once you establish like, okay, we got Diggs there, we've got Boutte taking that step up, you can then trickle in a tight end combo and some running backs and some other wide receivers that have stepped up at times too, whether it's Kyle Williams or Mac Hollins or Demario Douglas. Like they've got a bunch of other ancillary playmakers. They actually run like 7 deep in terms of guys that you can distribute the ball to, and pass catchers and playmakers really at no point this season has felt like an issue for the Patriots, when I thought it would be something that was an anchor on this team, and it just wasn't the case. And then the offensive line as well, man. What a surprise this group was this season. Major questions coming into the year with a pair of rookies set to start. Will Campbell, we figured would be pretty solid, and he was, but he was still a rookie. You had a very young Jared Wilson at left guard, another rookie there, being asked to start. A center in Bradbury who was kind of ran out of town from Minnesota for his pass blocking deficiencies. And then even at right tackle, Morgan Moses at 34 years old, he'll be 35 next month, a guy that had shown some regression and missed a lot of time the last 2 years. Were they going to be able to get a full season from him? And they sure as hell did. He rewound the clock multiple years in terms of his production, and he played all 20 games this year. Again, injury luck playing a huge part for the Patriots this year. And this wasn't an elite offensive line or an impenetrable wall or anything, but they were at least average and set the floor for this offense and allowed them to do what they wanted to do. And again, I had some worries that it was going to be a little bit more of a work in progress with this offensive line just to get to that point. So from QB to receivers to O-line, what a just remarkable series of green lights that this Patriots team hit to get to this point. And looking back on things, man, this was like a dream scenario, a top 5% outcome for all of these things to go right. And it happened for the Patriots. And it's just a testament, I think, to Mike Vrabel, that front office, to the culture in that building, that they reached that, those heights this year. It's just insane. Now, the defense, I think, was largely as advertised. I actually had them as my 10th ranking defense heading into the year. And I think that feels about right when you think back on the Patriots. They actually finished 23rd in defensive DVOA this year, which is a metric I like to refer to in terms of like team rankings and stuff. But they did finish in second in points per game allowed. They've also carried defensively in these playoffs. Their wins, these 3 wins to get to the Super Bowl, they held the Chargers to 3 points, the Texans to 16 points, and the Broncos to 7 points in their 3 wins. I have no problem saying this has been roughly a top 10 defense this year, led by Mike Vrabel, who has the defensive mind. They had certainly some talent on this roster with guys like Christian Gonzalez, some signings in Carlton Davis and Milton Williams, a lot of different floor pieces. I like the Robert Spillane signing. Heading into the year, really my main questions on the Patriots were the edge room, which I think was slightly better than I expected. K'Lavon Chaisson especially led the team in pressures, was someone that I definitely liked the signing of, but was someone that needed to hit a green light this year to stick with that term. Someone that had never really been a full-time starter, but I did say, like, his tape in Las Vegas was really encouraging, and they paid him for a reason. But really good job by that front office to recognize that talent, give a bigger opportunity for him, and for him to really step up. I would say as the biggest green light, sorry to spam that term, but it really is what it is. Someone that you didn't necessarily know how it would go, but something that did certainly go well. And that was the K'Lavon Chaisson signing that was a major question this year. But Harold Landry as well was also better than I thought. I did not like that move. Now, to be fair, he played much closer to my concerns on him, I think, in the final 3 months of the year, where his pass rushing capabilities really did dip. But he did, he was a big factor earlier in the year, and he continues to be a big part of their run defense as well. So, he's been just fine for them. And then the other question really on the Patriots defense that did exist was two major health questions with some of their better players. And that was Carlton Davis, who has perpetually missed about half the years that he's played for the majority of his career. It's the core reason why Tampa let him go, why Detroit let him go. He was coming off a season-ending injury last year. Well, Carlton Davis, sorry to beat a dead horse here, Patriots fan, but he played all 20 games this year. And then Christian Barmore as well, someone with a very mysterious injury record who missed the majority of last season. When he came back, he just wasn't quite the same guy. What were they going to get from him? And Christian Barmore played all 20 games this year. Just a miraculous series of guys staying healthy for this team that you really wouldn't expect. Between those two guys and Morgan Moses, for none of them to miss a single game, I hate to keep calling you lucky, Patriots fans, but there's really no other way to describe it, and it's just the honest truth about one of the major factors that has allowed the Patriots to get to this point here for the Super Bowl. But that's not to take away from the tremendous amount of player development and kind of perfect assembly, this perfect storm with this roster that they really put together. And that's front office. That's Mike Vrabel. It's the position coaches. It's Josh McDaniels. It's everybody there, including the players themselves who have to put in the work to develop and hit these green lights, so to speak. So for me, New England reaching this point was far more surprising than Seattle, in my opinion, but that doesn't mean it's not a surprise that Seattle got here. Seattle, like I said, was my 21st ranked team heading into the year, and definitely worth looking at what all went right with this team as well. And with Seattle, I think it is much more about one specific thing that I did unfortunately doubt about this Seahawks team, and that is really Sam Darnold. And a shade of that is some questions about this offensive line paired with Sam Darnold and his key weaknesses being how he responds to pressure, physical pass rushing pressure, and the poor mistakes he's shown to make when his offensive lines start to dwindle. I just didn't look at this Seahawks team as a great fit for Sam Darnold in that sense. And unfortunately for myself, man, he made me look like a fool for not having confidence in him, and that lack of confidence was the core reason for me ranking them 21st, for not predicting them to make the playoffs this year. And I'm not going to lie, man, doing this for a long time, there's a lot of quote unquote takes that just don't age the way you project them. But usually there's a hint of like, I at least hinted at the possibility of that happening, or it's not overly surprising that happened. Like, even in New England's case, yes, them like going to the Super Bowl absolutely is a surprise. But if you told me they won 10 or 11 games and went to the playoffs, based on my analysis of the Patriots, it wouldn't have been like this massive surprise, if that makes sense, right? They just had a lot of question marks. But there are takes where it's like, I have an opinion on something, and that opinion was just dead ass wrong. And that was that Sam Darnold, I didn't think was going to really work out here in Seattle. And it is by far my biggest regret from this season, because anybody that's been around the channel knows I actually love Sam Darnold, and for years was asking for him to get other opportunities, whether it was in San Francisco or in Minnesota last year. I actually had some really good takes about Sam Darnold last year in Minnesota and his ability to kind of win that job. And at the time, it was hold off McCarthy, which obviously McCarthy was injured, but I think it's fair to say Sam Darnold would have held off JJ McCarthy. I even started to make videos about how Sam Darnold should be extended in Minnesota, and they should maybe even think about trading JJ McCarthy. Now, unfortunately, I jumped ship way sooner than I should have, and it's one of my biggest regrets over the last couple of years, man, is overreacting to the final couple games of Sam Darnold, where he had those Sam Darnold sees ghosts games against Detroit and the Rams, where he really, brought the Vikings' amazing season to a tragic end with some really bad games. But, I certainly let that override a full season's worth of excellent tape from Sam Darnold, where he was clearly a top 10 quarterback last year. It just, the recency bias of how things ended there, unfortunately, did get to me, and it impacted my analysis of the Seahawks here. Now, I can at least rest assured that I'm not the only person that felt that way. Hell, Kevin O'Connell and Kofi Adolfo-Mensah, who is an NFL general manager, or was as of like 5 days ago, they felt the same way. A lot of analysts felt the same way as well. But Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks and John Schneider, the deserved winner of Executive of the Year, they just deserve the utmost amount of credit for believing in Sam Darnold, where a lot of teams didn't, right? There were other teams around the NFL too that could have made the big offer. The Raiders had an opportunity to pursue Sam Darnold. The Steelers could have pursued Sam Darnold. There's a long list of teams that could have decided to make this play, Vikings included. The Seahawks were the team that didn't just sign Sam Darnold, but they shipped their own quarterback off to make this move. And it is the single most consequential decision that was made this offseason, and it's led to the Seahawks here in the Super Bowl. And Sam Darnold has really played fantastic in these playoffs and shaken that narrative that when the pressure is on for him physically, and in this case, the mental pressure of not caving when he needs to clear that hurdle, he hasn't. And he played lights out, especially in that NFC Championship against the Rams, against a defense that has been his bugaboo for a long time. Now, that also synced up with the offensive line playing better than I expected as well. They deserve a quick shout out here. A big question I had was, could Abe Lucas really stay healthy at that right tackle spot? And he really proved that he can this year. And then I think the presence of Clint Kubiak as well has done wonders for the other weaknesses on this offensive line. This wide zone oriented play action offense, there's a reason we talk about this scheme being the meta around the NFL. A big reason this scheme works so well is the ability to get defenses moving east and west, reacting to play action, as opposed to getting north and south and after your quarterback right away. And I do still think Seattle's center and right guard especially are big weaknesses. And there's been times when that's really shown up as a problem for them. But Clint Kubiak running this offense at such an efficient level, knowing what buttons to press at the right time, it has really helped shelter some of the major issues that they do have with this roster that I do think, compound quickly with a specific quarterback like Sam Darnold. Though, again, I think Darnold has gotten better at sliding through pressure and playing when he's got a hand in his face, as well. So it's all just kind of working together there with the offense. And then I would also be remiss if I didn't shout out the, outrageous role that Jackson Smith-Njigba's next level breakout this year has had on this team as well. And that's another area of this Seahawks team where I was just wrong, man. Like, a lot of people like to throw my JSN takes in my face because of the level that he's reached. And as you should, man, like I said, I was wrong about the level of player that JSN was capable of becoming. I laughed at some of the Justin Jefferson comparisons that people drew to JSN coming out. I just did not see a player capable of becoming one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League, a truly elite, alpha, dominant player, worthy of winning Offensive Rookie of the Year as JSN has been. I saw a really high efficiency slot guy, a really smart player, someone that was going to be a really good starter in the NFL for a long time, worthy of a top 20 draft pick. But I did not project this level impact. And from a guy that was really capable of carrying a group of skill players, because it wasn't Cooper Kupp this year. Rashid Shaheed, for his flashes and made a big catch against the Rams in the NFC Championship. And I like Rashid Shaheed, but he hasn't been a big part of the offense this year. They've got some fun tight ends, some running backs that can catch the ball. But man, for JSN to just really week in, week out, be the dominant engine of this offense in so many ways, and a guy that could specifically stretch the field in the way that he's shown to be able to do. I mean, he's shown more speed as a vertical threat. He's not the biggest guy, but his ability to just consistently win body positioning and come down with these tough catches down the field, to play through contact in his routes, to set up double moves and create separation deep. It's just rare. It's the elite of the elite. And I didn't think that was possible. And that has taken a Seahawks offense that kind of likewise with the Patriots. Like, I liked their defense a lot. I'll talk about that side of the ball, but between Darnold playing well, but especially JSN reaching this level, it's allowed the Seahawks offense that I projected in the 20s heading into the year to be one of the better, more efficient offenses in the league this year, and obviously a core reason why they're here today. Now, the defense, on the other hand, not as big of a surprise to me. I mean, I think, I don't have the same regrets about what I said about this Seahawks defense heading into the year that I do with their offense. I had them heading into the year bordering on being a top 10 defense, and really just pointed out that, there's some pieces that still need to come together, whether that's how good is, rookie Nick Manwari going to be, Byron Murphy, their first round pick from last year. What kind of steps is he going to take in year two? I thought DeMarcus Lawrence was a pretty big question mark with the time he had missed. He's kind of this team's version of Stephon Diggs, as you will. He was, I would say, their best edge rusher this year, which I didn't really see happening. But yeah, I don't really have any regrets about what I said about the Seahawks defense. It's just they did take that next final leap under a defensive coach that I have the utmost respect for in Mike Macdonald. I think he is, him and Brian Flores, it's like 1A, 1B, whichever one you want to pick in terms of who the best defensive mind in the NFL today is. And I actually went back and listened to what I said. Rounds out your total defense, they kind of pick up the season where they left off, like right there at that kind of borderline top 10 range. And I think that makes total sense, right? Like, we know this is a really high floor defense and really just a good defense overall, but can they take that next step? And it's not like they made massive additions either. Obviously, the Manwari addition is very fascinating. But it's more about the unit, I think, rounding out together underneath Mike Macdonald's coaching, that everything could get lifted up just a little bit more. And then, yeah, you would be talking about a top 5 defense and a defense that would help this team transcend our 22nd overall power rank. So I don't think it was as big of a surprise that this Seahawks defense took the leap that it did, but it did need to happen. I mean, this has been... it's crazy, like between the Texans and the Seahawks, it's weird to say within 1 year that these have been two of the best defenses of the last decade, but it really has been that. And I keep coming back with Seattle. It's not that they really have like one dominant superstar that takes over games. They have stars on this defense, but it's the hive mind approach of this defense, the communication, the speed, and relentless pursuit of this defense in tandem with a really good scheme from Mike Macdonald that other teams are just trying to replicate across the league right now. It's all really come together to assist this offense. That is obviously a big part as well of why they're here. So that was a lot of retrospective looking at these two teams. I think given where these teams started in my mind and where they are here today, I'm glad that we kind of started today's show by diving into that side of things. I think it's really fascinating, and I hope you did too. And by the way, if you're liking the video, please do hit that like button. It helps me out. But we do have a game to discuss, and we have some matchups to break down with these two teams. So let's do that. So Seattle is favored by 4.5 points here for the game. The over-under is 45.5 points, which is a pretty average kind of medium scoring game, I would say, as far as the projection for the points to be scored in this one. I think that line does make sense. It definitely feels like the majority of people are on Seattle for this game. Let's break down if I'm on Seattle for this game or if I will go with the upset pick. But when I look at this matchup and this game, by far, the biggest variable that's going to decide how it goes is Drake May for the New England Patriots, and obviously just was voted the MVP runner-up for his regular season play, deservedly so. He was damn close to winning the award. It was, when I had to make the choice myself, it was like 51%, 49% back and forth trying to decide between him and Matthew Stafford. Can he play like the MVP caliber Drake May, or is this going to be a continuation of what we've seen from Drake May and in these playoffs? Unfortunately, that just has not been good. It has been nothing close to the version of Drake May we saw in the regular season. So that's the biggest variable and narrative for this game. This was from Mike Florio, actually. Drake May in these playoffs has a negative 17.7 EPA as a passer in the playoffs. This is the worst of any conference winning QB in the next gen stats era since 2016. The only other QB to post a negative EPA at all, again, Drake May was at negative 17.7. The only other one to go to the Super Bowl who was negative at all was negative 0.9. So Drake May has genuinely been bad in the playoffs, and I don't really know how you could argue otherwise, if you're anybody, Patriots fans included. I mean, he's made a few throws in big spots in some games that have been really tight thanks to the way that this defense has stepped up. As I mentioned, it's been 3, 7, and 16 points allowed in these 3 playoff wins for New England. So there's been some big throws, and on the receiving end, some really clutch, big-time catches by some of these different receivers as well, really stepping up for May, who's given him a chance on a lot of these. But, I think of the Stephon Diggs touchdown against the Chargers, the leaping grab near the right side pylon for a touchdown from Keyshawn Boutte. Again, good throws from Drake May, but also pretty improbable catches as well. There's been a few moments with Drake May in his arm, but it has largely been, inefficient decision-making, not finding answers to these playoff caliber defenses, taking a lot of sacks and fumbling the ball a lot. I think Drake May's pocket presence has shown up as a red flag in these playoffs where, sometimes it's just the tackle's just getting beat entirely and there's nothing May can do. But there's been a lot of holding on the ball a little bit too long, not seeing things as well as we've seen from him in the past. And yes, putting the ball in harm's way with these fumbles, that can't happen against this Seahawks defense that's going to be swarming him. A fumble in this game could change the outcome of it. So he's got to clean that up. He's got to be able to, with 2 weeks of preparation and film prep against this Mike Macdonald defense, he's got to be able to dissect these rotating coverages and guys dropping from the D-line and be able to make quick decisions and beat the Seahawks with his arm. He's not going to be able to just have these games where he makes 1, maybe 2 big throws and, picks up a couple first downs with his legs, but largely is just counting on the defense to win the game for him, which has been the case in these playoffs. He's just got to play better. We know he's capable of it, right? The dude was an MVP finalist and damn near won it, but you got to get that version from him if the Patriots are going to do this here. So that's the biggest deal against this swarming Seahawks defense. And to piggyback off of that, I don't think the Patriots are going to run the ball well in this game much at all. They're a very middling run game that's been a little bit better as of late, the more they've leaned into Ramondre Stevenson. The rookie Henderson is just a very boomer bust guy. And with the way that the Seahawks swarm to the ball, especially with Nicky Manwari, if he can be full go, he's the guy that is like going to be there to clean up a lot of these bounce outs that Henderson has had success with this year. He's been a very boomer bust runner for the most part outside of, there's that one game, I think it was against the Jets on Thursday Night Football. That's where my memory goes, but he had like a bunch of really, precise inside runs that looked great. They haven't been able to relocate that version of Henderson. And Stevenson's a good back, but with the way that the Seahawks have defended the run all year, I just don't see the Patriots getting a lot of movement. And for Ramondre Stevenson to really be able to bully up this front seven, and it goes beyond that with Seattle, with a guy like Nicky Manwari playing in the box as well. It's really a front eight through their base nickel defense. I don't think the Patriots are going to get a lot of support from the run game, so you need Drake Maye to step up. Now, I think you look at the Patriots defense, that has obviously been the core reason why these Patriots have been able to win these playoff games. There's just no other way to sugarcoat it. It's just the truth. I mean, they beat Denver 10-7 in a bad weather football game. The only touchdown they got there came on a 12-yard drive, followed up by the Jarrett Stidham debacle play that gave the Patriots offense the ball on the 12-yard line. 2 plays later, they get their only touchdown of the game. And it's not just that, right? Like that the Patriots defense absolutely embarrassed Justin Herbert in that first game. Did their job against the Texans as well. But I think you're looking at the Patriots like, can they repeat that formula against the Seahawks where they win a game 10-7 or, 13-10, as I think was the final score when they beat the Rams in the Super Bowl way back when. But the reality is that's probably just not as realistic with what the Seahawks have shown us this year, right? Like they have enough to at least put up maybe 20 points in this game. And that's why I really think you're going to need Drake Maye to put together at least a couple of touchdown drives, sustain a couple of drives that result in field goals, so you can maybe win this game 21-20 or 23-20 or something like that. But when I do look at how the Patriots defense is playing right now, I at least in my mind consider if it's possible that they could just do this again, because 3 straight games, no matter who your opponent is, to play this dominant defense, it's eye-opening. And I do think it's possible. I'll stick with that. It's not likely that they win a game 13-10 or something like that. But I think it's in the realm of possible outcomes from this game, because when I really do look at this matchup, there's opportunities for Mike Vrabel with 2 weeks of preparation to really put this Seahawks offense in hell. I especially think about Jackson Smith-Njigba being the prominent engine of this passing game. And this is not to take anything away from JSN. It's more of how, what I think about the other playmakers in Seattle. And Vrabel coming from that Belichick philosophy of 2 weeks to prepare, we've seen Belichick just like straight up take away one thing from your offense, force you to play left-handed and beat you any other way. That's kind of like the root of a lot of what made Bill Belichick so special. And I think Vrabel has a chance to do something to really make the Seahawks uncomfortable in this game. I mean, last week in the NFC Championship, you're watching the Rams defense, and I like Chris Shula a lot, the defensive coordinator, but it's like, why are we not like paying attention to JSN and just letting him, run the same routes he always runs and line up in the backfield when obviously they line JSN up in the backfield? Like, you think they're going to draw something up for the guy and nobody covers him into the end zone. And it's like, can Mike Vrabel stop that from happening? In the NFC Championship, Seahawks wide receivers had 16 receptions, 10 of which went to JSN. So can Mike Vrabel take Christian Gonzalez and shadow JSN? Or can he genuinely bracket him all day long and force the Seahawks to do something, come up with a game plan, a Belichickian game plan, again, with 2 weeks to prepare, that really makes this thing look a little different for the Seahawks offense? I do think as far as that side of the ball is concerned, the Seahawks offense versus the Patriots defense, that's the matchup I'm most fascinated to watch, whether it is Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion, I got to be careful what I'm about to say. I think if you asked me to take one cornerback in the NFL and he is going to play shadow coverage, one-on-one, whether it's into the slot, to the outside, he's got the other team's best guy all day. I think Christian Gonzalez is my pick there. It's either him or Patrick Surtain, but I think Gonzalez in that specific conversation might be my 1A. So whether it's that matchup or the schematic approach to try to neutralize JSN and force someone else to beat them, that's going to be a key thing to keep an eye on here. And is something that I almost expect Mike Vrabel to go about and for that to be his approach. So that'll be very fascinating. And then, look, I also think there is a matchup that could really swing this game, a specific one-on-one matchup that, could swing this game, and that is Milton Williams, the Seahawks' big free agent purchase this offseason, if you will, against the worst starting player on the Seahawks roster, and that is Anthony Bradford. Mike Vrabel and this coaching staff, if they can put together a combination of a game plan that can stop the run, which I'll talk about that in a second, but if they can stop the run, if they can double and scheme away JSN from getting 10 receptions in this game and having that big takeover day from JSN, and then align their fronts and show mugged up blitz looks and put together a really good pressure plan that isolates Milton Williams on Anthony Bradford. What a garbage matchup for the Seahawks. Anthony Bradford, who's one of the most flat-footed, clunky pass protectors in the league, that is shown to be an issue for the Seahawks if the right defense can get them into a passing script situation where you can isolate him one-on-one as a pass blocker. Milton Williams is uniquely equipped to terrorize Anthony Bradford in this game. And whoever wins this game, if you're betting props and stuff or putting together underdog lineups or whatever it is, I love getting Milton Williams in there to get a half a sack, because a smart coaching staff like New England is going to try to make that a matchup that can help swing things in their favor. Now, a lot of that is, again, like, you need the prerequisite of, okay, JSN's not getting open quick and early because we're focusing on him in our coverage. And we got to stop the run if you're New England, because you have to get them into those drop back passing situations where you can neutralize Anthony Bradford in a north and south pass rushing situation. But if they can do all three of those things, that's going to be the key to success, to actually keeping Seattle within, I would say, within a couple touchdowns, a 13 to 17 point script, in which case Drake May can turn the ball over once. He can have some sloppier dropbacks, but as long as he can make some of the big throws and have some of the big scrambles, can you win this game 17-14 or 16-14, 17-16, something like that? It's possible for this defense to have that dominant outing that really carries the day for New England one more time here. It's easier said than done, but I do see a path for those three things to line up, and New England can take care of business here. And I think because of the way we set that up, I think Seattle's ability to run the ball is going to be paramount in this game. The Patriots were 16th in run defense DVOA during the season. They were a very average run defense, but it's been a big part of their playoff run here. New England has allowed the Chargers to 87 points, the Texans to 87 rushing yards, 48 rushing yards for the Texans, and 79 rushing yards for the Broncos. I do think the Seahawks have the best rushing attack out of those three teams. And Kenneth Walker, as we look at this from Seattle's perspective, he's a big wild card, I think, for the Seahawks. I think with him getting the whole backfield, with Charbonnet injured, he has looked so freaking explosive. But can he pick the right lanes? Can he have an efficient day and do everything required from him in this backfield? Not just, bounce runs outside and win the perimeter and do those things that he does well, but can he convert 3rd and 2s and 3rd and 4s and have a consistent day at the office? I think Kenneth Walker could be the biggest wild card for the Seahawks. We said Drake May was for the Patriots. I think if Kenneth Walker, in tandem with his offensive line, if they can get north of 120 rushing yards in this game, it's lazy analysis to say that. Obviously, the run game matters, but that to me would help them stay out of these dropback situations where I think Seattle can, or New England rather, can turn some things in their favor. And then, of course, it really does go without saying, but Sam Darnold's got to keep it up. A main reason I don't want to spend too much time on Sam Darnold is that I think after that Rams game where I thought he had a lot of potential to be the guy that sees ghosts and makes ill-advised decisions under pressure and the ghosts of Sam Darnold's past. I really think he conquered a lot of that, whether it's stupid rhetoric or fake or not. If you're talking about predicting his performance, I really think if it was going to happen, it would have happened in the NFC Championship. I feel pretty good with 2 weeks of preparation. Sam Darnold's going to come out and do his thing. It's just a matter of what is available to be executed upon in terms of the surrounding situation. So I don't look at Sam Darnold as this massive variable, but of course, if there's maybe a 1% shred of doubt that the ghosts of Sam Darnold's past, literally seeing ghosts and, making some of those decisions and being irked in the pocket and all that stuff, if there's a chance that guy comes out in this game, that could be detrimental to the Seahawks. But I didn't want to spend a whole lot of time on that because I just don't think that's going to happen. I think Sam Darnold's going to play his game and help this team to the best of his ability, whereas Drake May is much more from a quarterback perspective. I just don't fully know what version of him we're going to get right now. But those are kind of the key matchups and variables that I'm looking for in this game to keep an eye on, to watch for this game. But that takes me to my prediction for this game. And it also takes me to the sponsor for today's show, Underdog. They have got you covered for the big game, man. First and foremost, their big promotion, the big reveal, where you can pick a card in their app and it'll tell you if you get a free pick for the player that you're going for there. Very fun, especially if going in kind of which players you're leaning towards in terms of passing yards or rushing yards or sacks or whatever it is. For example, the pick'em lineup I like, based on everything we just previewed there, I like Kenneth Walker to have a good game for the Seahawks at 79.5 rush plus receiving yards. Keyshawn Boutte, I think, has an opportunity to make a big catch outside the numbers, maybe against Josh Jobe in this matchup, one of the weaker links in the Seahawks defense. But with a lack of a run game, I do think the Seahawks score some points in this game. The Patriots are going to have to air it out a decent amount. I like Keyshawn Boutte to do something in this game. So 39.5 receiving yards there. Jackson Smith-Njigba, I am actually going to go lower on him at 89.5 yards. I really do think Vrabel is going to force other players to beat them. Who those players are going to be that steps up, that's a little bit harder to predict, but that's what I'm thinking there with JSN's production in this game. And then Milton Williams, like we said, finding that matchup against Anthony Bradford to get that half sack. So to take the most advantage of the big reveal here, you can find anybody else in this game that isn't those four players. You can stack a new free pick on top of our four selections there and get an even larger payout than the 14.7 times payout that this lineup would get you even more glued to your seat. You can brag to all your friends, watching the game with at the party or whatever it is. Really a fun promo here. So Underdog has got you covered there. I also want to shout out just a fun little idea I had. If you're playing Pick'em on Underdog, I did this with my friends down at the Shrine Bowl for the NFC Championship, and we did a fun little party pick'em lineup where, the game Telephone, where you tell, one person in the ear and you see if you can get the same response on the back end. We did Underdog Pick'em Telephone and passed the phone around. Everybody made a player selection. It was a ton of fun just with a low level entry. I think it was a $5 entry that would have covered our, maybe $600 meal between the 8 of us. And just a fun, a fun thing to do if you're at a party for the big game here. Just a fun little thought there. But if you are signing up on Underdog, they're running all these great promotions. You can use code TFG when you sign up. You will support my channel in the process. And, they've got pick'em for NBA and every other sport you can think of. They've got best ball drafts as well as you start thinking about, rookie analysis and getting ahead of the game. With that, even though the NFL season is coming to a close here. So Underdog really does have you covered depending on the state that you're in as well. You can do Gatorade color and all of that fun stuff. Underdog's been just a great partner to work with. So thank you to them for sponsoring today's show and setting us all up for the big game here. But it's time to make my final pick. Obviously, the Seahawks are decently favored in this one at 4.5 points. The vast majority of people are going to be on them. And I do get it. I tweeted this out, and this is not to tick off Patriots fans or anything. It's just my genuine, honest thoughts. Like, the Patriots' path to this game has been very fortunate, specifically with Bo Nix going down. I don't think they win that game against Denver if Bo Nix plays. I mentioned this, the explicit play that Jarrett Stidham made was the difference in the game substantially. And also Drake May is just not playing well right now. And I kind of tweeted this out, like, New England just doesn't quite feel like the typical team that gets to go to the Super Bowl. You know what I'm saying? I think they've had this incredible year, also assisted by a tremendous amount of injury luck and an easier path to get to this point. And even before the playoffs, the Patriots got a lot of crap for having a truly historically easy schedule that helped them get into the playoffs to begin with. Whereas the Seahawks do really feel like a Super Bowl championship caliber team with a fully complete defense that can dominate games and an offense that's just playing at a much higher level than New England's is right now. And they have some more of that superstar talent with a guy like JSN to lean into. And I think that's reflected in the line, right? 4.5 points. It's reflected in the way that we talk about this game, where it's kind of expected that Seattle's going to win. But as I also said in that tweet, it's like, look, despite all that, the Patriots have an opportunity here. Even if their path here has truly been more fortunate, they have an opportunity here to make none of that matter. We broke down the matchup. I do think the Patriots have a chance in this game, and they have a chance to shut that narrative up by winning their toughest battle here on Sunday night. Like, if it makes any sense, Seattle's toughest battle for me in terms of the power of the team that they've faced, like, their toughest battle, so to speak, was last week. And it makes you feel better about the Seahawks in this game. But New England has a chance to really impress here in this game. And I'll stick with that, win their toughest battle in their final game of the year. And the more and more I break this matchup down, the closer I think this game will be. Before I sat down to preview this game, I really thought my take was going to be Seahawks -4.5. They're the better team. The Patriots are frauds. And it's just not how I feel. I think the Patriots are a really good team that, yes, are underdogs. They're going to have to really thread some specific needles to pull this game off. But I think they can do that because of who their quarterback is, because of their coaching and some of the really good players that they do have on their team. So I've shied away from saying, yes, Seahawks by 4.5 for sure. I especially think the Patriots have a chance to muck this game up with their defense that's playing at such a high level with some of those matchup advantages we talked about, and keep this game close in which Drake May maybe gets the ball last or makes a big throw in a big spot in the second half with maybe some help by these wide receivers making some spectacular catches. If you get this game close in the fourth quarter, it's anybody's ball game. So I'm giving the Patriots a much better chance of winning this game than I originally thought. And I think a lot of Patriots fans are like, come on, out with it. Who are you picking? You're on the edge of your seat. Like, are you doing it? Are you going to be one of the few people that actually picks the Patriots in this game? I'm not bold enough. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'm ultimately just too impressed by Seattle as a team right now. And I just haven't seen enough reasons in these playoffs to feel confident in enough with this big pick that Drake May is going to be able to overcome this defense and do enough in this game. I would love to be proven wrong about that. I would. I really don't have a major horse in this race either way. I would be, at the end of the day, happy to see either of these teams fulfill, the ultimate goal this season. But if I have to make a pick here, I just got to go with Seattle, with Sam Darnold, who's playing well. Even if Vrabel is able to neutralize JSN, which is an if to begin with, you do have Clint Kubiak, who's going to be a head coach basically the day after this game ends, who's, going to be able to pivot and find some other answers. And they do have other playmakers. Like Shaheed made a big play last week. Kenneth Walker's awesome. They've got some tight ends. I still think Seattle can do enough offensively, dominate defensively for the most part, and come out victorious. And after really thinking about this game, I went away from the Seahawks by 4.5. I just don't think there's a ton of value there. The line makes about sense to me. I think this is a 3 to a 4 point game. I do think it's going to be a fun one. I like the under in this game, though. I think the 45.5 points is just a tick high. I think wherever this lands, whether it's the Patriots pulling it out or the Seahawks doing their thing, I think it's 20 to 17, 24 to 20, 23 to 17, something in that range that keeps you just under that 45.5 points. A lot of times when you do bet an over-under, it's knowing that it's going to be close, but trusting that the value is there. And I think this is one of those games, if you want to bet the under in the Super Bowl, if you want to, it's just never fun to bet the under. But that's where I think the value is from a pure betting perspective. And then, of course, that underdog lineup, I like what we previewed there. So again, code TFG if you're playing along on underdog. But that is all I have for my big Super Bowl preview show. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know for future reference if you kind of enjoyed this overall format as this kind of retroactive look at the season at large while also breaking down the individual matchup. Please do hit that like button if you did. Make sure you're subscribed. This is the last time we're in the 2025 season, right? We are now looking forward to draft content where my next video is going to be my wide receiver rankings for the upcoming draft, hoping for Monday or Tuesday on that. And I also want to remind you guys, I'm in the process of finishing my Studs and Duds postseason series as well. That has made its move to exclusive content. So YouTube members here get access to that. It's also available over on my Patreon. So if you're looking for Studs and Duds, that's where to find it. The support for that change to exclusive content with that series has been incredible. So thank you guys for that. That is all I have. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the big game tomorrow or tonight, whenever it is you're seeing this video. And we'll talk soon. Cheers.